and taken seriously. We'll have to see. But and people ask me about this all the time. When you have these events that happen where loved ones are lost or a beloved figure is lost, and I'm asked, why would we create this on this higher level that you're talking about? Why would we create such a feeling of loss and devastation? And my answer to that comes, from a metaphysical perspective, which is basically that there isn't any loss. That figure hasn't been lost. That figure remains with you in a different form. And not only that, but these people on this highest level, whose, shall we say, earthly form or smaller form or avatar form has passed away. They stepped forward to do this on that higher level. They created this to say something. Imagine, if you will, this being, this creature that, or these people that love humanity so much that they are willing to, don a physical form and enact what appears to feels like a tragedy in order to help humankind to bring a new energy and a new idea forward. That's what I mean when I talk about the metaphysical aspects of this. And some people, I understand, can't wrap their heads around it. I don't try to talk about it too much, especially just after these situations, because a lot of people are still in pain. But if my words help them to work through that pain, which I hope they do, then it's worth it. This show is never about trying to force a perspective on anyone. I explain what my perspective is, and if you relate to it, fine. If you don't, well, you don't, and I completely understand. I didn't get here, I haven't been from this perspective my whole life. It took a lot for me to get here, and there are times in my life and in my journey when, if I had heard someone saying the kinds of things I say today, I would have, thrown up my hands in frustration and anger, because I would not have been able to understand. So, hopefully I'm not angering anyone. If I'm giving you food for thought, that's all this is about. All right, well, now on to our topic for today, which is, on being alone. And the benefits of such. So, a lot of people have trouble being alone. It's very difficult for them. But there are others of us who not only, don't have a problem with it, but actually like it. And our society, we are becoming more. There's more people living alone in our society, living singly, if you will, than ever before. So that's showing us something, I believe. So I wanted to talk about, how being alone and being single is seen sometimes in society. And it's interesting that we're just talking about shooters and things like this. Quite often, what's used to describe some of these people who commit these crimes, they're loners. They are, they kept to themselves. And, these negative ideas of what it means to be alone keep getting sort of perpetrated or perpetuated. It's actually the word I meant. And oftentimes people who are single are stereotyped and stigmatized. But there's lots of evidence that time to yourself, it certainly is helpful when you are developing a spiritual perspective, but there's lots of health benefits to it. Now you may be familiar with some of the research that's been touted, saying that people in partnerships are happier and healthier. For instance, there was a study that included 572 healthy adults in Pittsburgh and found that married folks had lower levels of stress and the stress hormone cortisol than divorced adults and those who had been single. And chronic stress like this is known to be a contributor to many chronic diseases. And the research analyzing 15 studies was published in 2017 found married people were less likely to develop dementia than their always single or widowed counterparts. Plenty of other research has linked long-term romantic relationships to everything from longevity and lower blood pressure to better immune systems and happiness. So, happy, healthy relationships can certainly, lead to, better health, psychologically and physically. But some of the methodology, according to some researchers, and particularly Bella DiPaolo, who I'm quoting quite a bit here because she's made a really career out of talking about what it means to be single. And she is a researcher herself, and she studies research that's done in this area. And she says that some of this methodology is faulty, particularly because the research excluded divorced people. In other words, she says, imagine if a pharmaceutical company does a study on their new drug, and they find that more than 40% of the people hate it so much they won't take it anymore. But then tried to publish a study only comparing those who stayed on the drug with those who never took the drug. They get laughed right out of every medical journal. And there's research linking single life with lots of health benefits. So, I want to talk about this because, often we have mixed feelings about being single and alone. Often we feel, like maybe something's So I want to talk about some research in this area. We're running short on time, but sort of the positive side of being alone. And this, again, is coming from Ms. DiPaolo's research. And she has a book out called she has a book out called Alone, the Badass Psychology of People Who Like Being Alone. And she also has another book, which I'm trying to find. Yeah, here it is. Singled Out: How Singles Are Stereotyped, Stigmatized, and Ignored and Still Live Happily Ever After. And then there are people she calls single at heart. They may be married or in a relationship, but they kind of feel more single or prefer to have time to themselves. So there's a lot of information here and a lot of research that's been done that shows that single people tend to exercise more, often sleep better, and have less weight, and have stronger and more uh, looked at hundreds of undergraduates and asked about their experiences of being alone, either totally alone or alone in the presence of others. For example, when eating, dining by yourself, or going to a movie or something by yourself. They were asked specifically about 9 different ways of experiencing time alone that were found to be important in previous research. So when participants rated the importance of each of the 9 kinds of solitude experiences, their rank order looked like this. Number 1 was time alone can be an opportunity to think your problems through, or think about the decisions you need to make. This was the experience of solitude that participants valued the most. Next was the time alone can be experienced as inner peace. You feel relaxed and calm and free of the everyday pressures of your life. Number 3, time alone can be good for self-discovery. You understand more about your goals and values, strengths and weaknesses. And time alone can be used for diversion, such as watching TV, reading, or spending time online. Time alone can awaken your creativity. You come up with new ideas or artistic creations or intellectual insights. Number 6 was time alone can offer freedom from concern about what others think, or anonymity. You can do what you want to do. And number 7 was time alone can be good for feeling close to other people who are not there with you. And time alone can foster spirituality. That's number 8, including closeness to God or a more secular sense of harmony with the world. And number 9, this is the only negative experience that people listed. Time alone can be a time when people experience loneliness. Unsurprisingly, the experience of loneliness is valued less than any other way of experiencing solitude. So it's interesting that spirituality comes in at number 8. Well, and again, these are undergraduates. These are kids in their late teens, early 20s. So that may have a lot to do with it. I would say these experiences of solitude are all aspects of spirituality, or most of them are. The opportunity to think through your problems and decisions you need to make. The sense of inner peace. There's nothing more spiritual than that. Self-discovery. That is another aspect of spirituality. Spirituality is self-discovery. Creativity. That is another aspect of spirituality. Freedom. To be yourself. That's spirituality too. Almost all of these things are spirituality, or in one form or another. Feeling close to another person who isn't there with you, particularly perhaps someone who's passed away or something like that. These are all spiritual experiences. So my take on it, and I'm going to come back to this, we'll probably come back to it next week, but my take on it is many people may be uncomfortable being alone because it is such a spiritual experience, because it is you encountering you with nothing to block it or to